All right. Well, I am pleased to be joined today by arguably three of my finest alumni to ever grace the halls of Mentry Hall, the third floor. I don't know how they appear on the screen when they record, but we obviously have Sammy Salina. She is a reporter at KARE TV, correct, in Minneapolis, Minnesota,
Yep.
right? All right. I also have Louis Tran, who is a reporter currently in Winston-Salem, and maybe on to other things by the time you see this. But I figured I would keep that a mystery, and I can fill the class in when when we talk to him, just in case this slips out. And then I have and he's a reporter in Winston-Salem, obviously, and then of course Austin Westfall, who is I guess you could call a national correspondent for Fox Digital. Is that correct? And you're in Phoenix, right?
Something along the lines of that. It's complicated, but that'll do. Absolutely.
Okay, and you can always correct me when you get to that point where you're telling people what you do. So anyway, I thought I'd start with Sammy though, and each of these guys, feel free, each of you, I should say, feel free to kind of just tell me where it all started and where it's led you. So Sammy, I'll let you go first.
Yeah. So I went to COC. Oh gosh, I don't know. I started in 2019, Oh no, way before that. I'm way older than that. What, 2017, 16?
I'm thinking, yeah, I don't know.
Something like there.
Yeah.
And I tell the story every semester, so I'll just like breeze through it real fast. But the first semester, I did not like Canyons news. I just didn't think it was for me because I had anxiety interviewing people. I just didn't feel like I was good on air. I didn't think I was good at shooting. I just didn't think I was good enough. And then Dave was like, no, give it another try. I believe in you. And then the second semester, I just picked it up. I started getting better. I started feeling more confident. And when you're more confident, you have more fun. And that's kind of what like started me down this track. I went to Arizona State, and I had a really good time there. And then I took my first job in Alaska, and I had an awesome adventure there. And then I took my second job in Hawaii, and I had an awesome adventure there. And I'm so thankful that this career took me to all of these amazing, wonderful places. I really like character-driven storytelling, kind of feature stuff. And that's what drove me to pick KARE 11 for my third job, where we have some of the best storytellers, in my opinion, in the world, and I get to learn from them every day. So I'm in Minneapolis right now, and that's a little bit about my journey.
And you've been a reporter, obviously, in all three stations. That was your primary job, reporter?
Yeah. So actually, like MMJing at all of the stations, pretty much, and I still MMJ, and I still like it.
Very cool. All right, Louis. So tell me about your journey.
Yeah, and by the way, I just want to add some context. Sammy's being a little too humble. KARE 11 is like the legendary, the storytelling station of the country. So I want to throw that out there. Boy Hooper is, I love his stories. But my name is Louis Tran. So my career path is a little non-traditional. I went to the University of Washington in Seattle, graduated in 2014, majored in business, moved to LA, and I worked in consulting for about 5 years. And then, so how I got introduced to news was because I just really wanted to find something that really fulfilled me. My mentors told me that there were 4 pillars of happiness. There's status, wealth, flexibility, and then content. And I knew my pillar of happiness was content. I wanted to wake up on a Monday excited about what I do. And one of my mentors, Jonathan Gonzalez, who's also an alumnus at COC, said, hey, you should connect with Dave. So it was during the summer of, I think, 2017. And he told me like, hey, we don't have any news classes right now, but you should take an editing class. So that's how I got introduced to COC. I worked full time. So Dave was so kind that oftentimes I would show up to class late because I would be commuting from Torrance for my job all the way to COC. But long story short, was there for about like a year, loved it. I got my first start in Fort Wayne, Indiana as an MMJ. I became the weekend anchor, was there about 3 years. Then it led me to Winston-Salem, where I'm currently at right now as a weekend anchor, finishing out my 2-year contract. And then I'll be moving in 3 weeks to Seattle. So I love what I do, have no regrets as well. And I really feel like what we do is a true service to the community. And I think Austin and Sammy can really talk about that as well.
Very cool. you have a great story. And the fact I still say I'm not worthy that someone could drive up from Torrance, but I mean, it paid off for you. So you were in beast mode like every day of the week. That's all I got to say. Like your Seattle running back at one point, right?
Hey, when you have a professor like Dave, it's not that hard to do that. So I appreciate you.
Very cool. All right. Last but not least, certainly not least, Austin Westfall, sharing the same name as one Austin Dave. But
The good Austin. You could just say it. The good Austin.
You're the good Austin. Yes, you're the good Austin. So go ahead. Tell me about your journey, sir.
So me and Sammy overlapped at College of the Canyons. Spent a few years there just kind of finding myself and figuring out that this was actually what I wanted to do. The Cougar News, as we called it back then, now Canyons News, kind of inspired me to head over and invest in myself and try and place myself into a good journalism program to continue my education. We went to Arizona State after that. Did some border reporting over there down on California, Arizona, and Texas borders. First job was an MMJ in Bakersfield, California, and which was also the first stop for Jonathan Gonzalez. He's becoming a common theme here on this call so far.
He's like the Bill Belichick, I think, of the business.
Yeah.
Somebody out there who knows him.
That's right. And so we spent 2 years up in Bakersfield MMJing, and then took an MMJ job with Fox News, covering whatever they needed around the country for all of their owned and operated television stations. So I'll be transitioning from that into more of a breaking news anchor role. That's for their internet streaming platforms very soon here. So crazy time so far, an interesting path. And I always love it when I get to hop on these calls and catch up with y'all.
How are you enjoying that Arizona heat, by the way? I'm just curious.
Thankfully, I'm not there quite yet.
Oh, you're not there? Oh, you're still in North Carolina. Okay.
I am in California. I am like 30 minutes south of you right now.
Oh, you're in Chatsworth.
I'm in Chatsworth, where it's a comfortable 103 degrees today. So, and then it's going to be 115 once I.
All right. So there's a very good chance when we tape this today and when we actually play this in class, that I'll probably have lunch with you at some point then.
There's a very good chance my face will be even redder by that point too.
Very cool. All right. Well, obviously I want to get into a couple of topics here. And, one thing that Austin, Dave, and I, talk about, and I guess I can even say, because I mean, I've known you all from the very start of your journey, right? Is seeing how you started and where you are today. And Sammy, I thought what I'd do here is, I know you shared this with me, and again, this is where I get a little rusty on sharing screens and all that. So hopefully this works, but I wanted to play a little excerpt of what you shared with me from your MMJ reel from going from Hawaii to Minneapolis. And then
I do have my student reel, Dave, too, if you want to play them back to back. I forgot, I didn't send it to you because I didn't read the talking points before I got home from work. But if you want to play that first, that could be.
Let me see if I can find that real quick. Okay, so this is from 2019. So this is from when you were at Arizona State trying to get your first gig in Alaska, correct?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Here we go. We'll just play a few, like 30 or 40 seconds of this, but at least you get a sense of, get this volume back up here. There we go.
In the general population, about 8% of youth are in the LGBT community, but in the youth homeless population, that number is at about 40%. This Welcome to Coral Canyon sign resembles the landscape right next to it. Burnt and unrecognizable. And volunteers will sort through a warehouse full of toys just to find the perfect one. This is the first day the Ryans have been back. Their house is okay, but their shed is a different story. Inside were yearbooks, wedding photos, but compared to what happened next door, that's a lot worse. Noah says the best way to help these guys is to keep a distance of at least 10 feet when you see them on the beach. So Michelle rescues dogs like Rosalie, who would be a little bit harder to adopt out. Even though there are less people here than there were in the Phoenix March in 2018, the message still holds strong. Equality for all women. At least.
All right, so that's some excerpts of your stand-ups from 2019. Do you want me to play what you look like now, or do you want to compare and
I think
contrast?
it's still, it was actually, all this stuff is from a year ago because I don't have an updated reel, but it's relevant.
Okay, so this is Hawaii. This would be, as you say, a year ago. So this is now 3 years later, and here we go.
Hey, good morning. So experts say that this will likely be Ige's most unguarded speech because it will be his last State of the State. Well, Steve, waves are literally coming through the front doors of this home, and it has actually sunk quite a bit since we last saw it. Some residents in Haleiwa have mud on their floors. Some have a foot of mud in their yards. This is how the vandals came in. They sliced through the shade cloth, and when workers arrived a couple mornings afterwards, they saw that their greenhouse here in Pearl City was trashed. Residents are concerned about parts of the trail like this one, where the tree roots are actually lifting up the asphalt, and history tells us it will likely get worse. You're looking at a chart of positive cases going back to near the start of the pandemic. Take bars, for example. Relief came this month.
Okay, so I have a question for you. Actually, you can assess this yourself, but what do you see, like, how did you develop your voice? Because I think if we went all the way back and I showed students some of your earlier work from Canyons News, they would be like, this is the same person, on camera. But so how did you grow? How did you evolve? Because clearly you're right. I think the one thing that I noticed with that later reel is that your voice is a little bit deeper. Even the pacing is a little bit different. So tell me how that evolution went for you.
Yeah, sure. So I think, like in the earlier days in the 2019 one, my voice was very, very high. And I was pretty sweet sounding, I think, for a lot of it. And I think that honestly, like a big part of my progression was just like aging a little bit, if I'm being honest, which was like so frustrating when I got that advice as a student, where it's just like, well, it's just going to take some time. And it kind of does. But I think, my confidence grew. I just look a little bit more comfortable on camera. I'm doing active things, and then I'm talking a little bit faster too. I think my pacing a couple years ago was very slow. I think it had to do with confidence. And then eventually you just kind of feel better about being on camera and you talk a little bit faster. And you try not to talk too fast too. So I think that there's kind of a sweet spot that I think I'm continuously trying to find and develop. And that's going to be a career-long thing, I think.
I think one thing I noticed, and fellows, feel free to jump in on this too, because we're all in this together here. I feel like you do a really good job of talking to the audience. Clearly everything that you showed us in the montage for 2019 and last year in 2022, how did you develop a style where you talk to the audience? What are you thinking about when you're on camera doing that?
Yeah, I think, you want to try to find something that's relevant for people, something that's interesting, something that describes, what you're doing. I will say as a student, and if you watch Austin's student reel, we probably have a lot of the same stand-ups, because as a student, it's totally okay for you to go out and practice. Take your friends, shoot your friends, then they can shoot you, have factually correct information, but practice doing stand-ups. Some of those stand-ups weren't even in stories. I think one day we actually took Austin Dave and we went out to a fire affected area and we just knocked a bunch of stand-ups out for everyone. And I think both of us ended up using that for our reels, and that's totally okay. So practice is a huge thing, is that when you do it 100 billion times, you start to get good at it. So I would say every story that you do, even if it's not going to go anywhere, just record a stand-up, because you will get better, and the only way to get better is to do it.
Very
If I
cool.
recall correctly, me
Yeah.
and Stephanie we weren't assigned to that fire or anything like that. It was just as simple as we wanted stuff for our reel. We anticipated that we were going to need to find a job sometime soon, and we needed good stuff for our reels. So we happened to have this very huge, unfortunate situation happen within driving distance. We all went down there. We talked with folks, and we got a couple of those stand-ups, and they ended up, being some of the, and you know what's on your reel, by the way, is the best of the best. So the fact that it ended up on her reel meant that just that day that we decided to go down to the fire ended up being one of the best bests that we've all had during our college experience. So that's incredibly valuable. And one thing that's also easy to maybe look past in some of her stand-ups is in any situation where it required camera panning or any kind of movement or whatever, it was always quick. It was always snappy. It was punchy, and it keeps you, I don't know, it gets your attention when it's that way. It's not slow moving. It's how a reel is supposed to be. She had the forethought to think, oh, this is going to be on TV and people are going to be watching this. Maybe it's not so interesting to just be a talking head. Maybe I do this cool thing where I put my hand up to the camera and I move it along with me and I jolt it to the side. Little things like that catch people's attention.
Yeah,
Very
and I think
cool.
you'll also notice, I think both times I start out with a shot where it is just me and I look pretty good. And there's also like some shots where I'm in a baseball cap and I'm sweaty out in a flood scene, but there's also shots where it's just like you show them who you are, you have your full makeup on and you have your dress, and guys, you have your powder on, because you want to look like you knew you were going to be on TV that day, I guess is like a good way to describe it. And that's something that a mentor eventually told me. And I know, Dave, you want to talk about this later, but a mentor told me like, hey, you're doing a good job. Your stories are awesome. But when you go on camera, you kind of don't look like you knew you were going to be on camera that day. It kind of looks like you didn't brush your hair. It kind of looks like you didn't put any makeup on. And I'm so glad she said that to me, because it does make a difference, in terms of you looking like professional on air. So that's something that if you think you're going to shoot a stand up, like bring a comb, bring some powder, like ladies, if you want to like put some, lipstick on, wear like, a professional outfit. I think it does make a difference. And I think you'll notice that, we're dressed for TV in all of these shots. Even when we were students, we were dressing up like as if we were.
Yeah, you guys were always kind of like, I think a cut above. I think you always had sort of it in the back of your head, this might be something that you use later for a reel. Louis, I know you were definitely I know that you definitely had a method every time you came in. I think you were always thinking like, this is something that's going to help progress me forward, correct?
Yeah, I guess in what aspect, but that's definitely true. But are you talking about anything specifically?
Just like in terms of like, I know we could go a number of different directions here. I'll tell you what, before I follow up my question here, because I'm going to get to Austin as well. Let me show the students here what you look like. You actually sent me your reel that got you to Seattle, I'm assuming, right?
This is not the latest one for Seattle, but this one was like early. So I'm kind of my mentors challenged me to create a new reel every 2 months, and a couple of reasons. One, it keeps me accountable that when I go into work, I'm having the intention that I want to find great stuff to put on my reel, so I'm not letting time pass me by. Two, it also makes sure that it's making me accountable that I'm putting my best work out there consistently, so people can consistently see my growth rather than 1 or 2 times a year. So it's a lot of work. I wouldn't recommend it I wouldn't say it's normal, but my mentors really pushed me like, hey, if you want to get to the next level, I want to challenge you in different ways. So he made me do a new reel every 2 monts. So that was like the beginning of February, I think. Or I forgot. Yeah.
So let's play a little bit of this, and I want you to tell me once we get done with this, how much where you feel like you've evolved as an on-camera storyteller or just a storyteller in general. So let me get this shared here. I'm looking at you. You can't see it yet, but you should probably see it now. All right, here we go.
Take a look at the ground right here. you can see scattered pieces of debris across the sidewalk on the side of the road. And to the left of me, you can see a skid mark from last night's crash and broken pieces of plastic like this one in my hand. So a number of local restaurants are having a great time too, and they're getting a lot of traffic because of this event. Over here, families can enjoy this brand new swimming pool. And hey, if you enjoy sports, you can also enjoy a basketball game right behind me. And for the little ones, they can also enjoy this brand new leisure pool. And there are more than 40 lifeguards available to keep your family safe. Last night's storm knocked down this tree right behind me, and it's now leaning against this house. And for context, I'm about 5'7", and these roots right here are about twice my height. So to help them stay afloat, many business owners can use a ghost kitchen like this one right here. They can have access to an entire kitchen at a lower cost. But the main issue is the wind. It's pretty bitter right now. And just to show you how cold it is, take a look at this. This is no longer snow. It's actually a frozen piece of ice.
All right, so before we get to the anchor desk, let me stop sharing here for a second. So tell me, Louis, good job, by the way. It's really cool to see you doing all these different live shots, you know, in your element. How have you, like, looking at that, how have you, like, evolved from, say, from the very beginning when you walked into my class? What have you feel like you've strengthened the most? Where do you feel like you still need to, you know, grow as an on-camera storyteller?
Yeah, I think my voice has changed so much. I think 5 years ago it was so high pitched, like Sammy mentioned. And I think for me, at least, when I've noticed, when I'm so focused on memorizing lines and you're not as confident in the beginning, you tend to be a little more anxious, you talk a little faster, and you kind of talk from your throat. But when you're more comfortable, let's say sitting in front of a friend, grabbing a drink at Starbucks, you're relaxed. When you're relaxed, you speak from your diaphragm, from your stomach with more conviction, and you talk slower at the same time. I know, Sam, you mentioned that when you get more confident, you talk a little faster. For me, it was a little opposite. When I get very nervous or anxious, I talk really fast. I think what also helped me was my mentors also told me to be intentional with your live shots. How can you advance the story in a creative way that brings the viewer into the story? So my mentors often talk about the 5 senses, what you hear, smell, see. Those things the viewers can't see, they can't tell. So it's your job to bring them into the story. Also, in the beginning of my career, I was really focused on memorizing lines, but now I do hit points. If I'm going to talk about the damage on the sidewalk, then the tree, then the road. So I understand in my head that I have talking points I want to talk about. And when you're memorizing lines, typically your pace is typically the same. But when I'm talking, having a conversation, the pace changes. Like, hey, Dave, how are you doing today? Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention yesterday. It's like the pace changes in a very conversational way. So when I had hit points, the pacing became more natural in terms of, you know, ebbing and flowing faster than slower as well. I was focused more on, in the beginning, trying to be perfect. But now when I'm focused on, I want to serve the viewers, that's my main focus. It becomes more natural and it's less about me. It's more about helping the viewers and everything sounds more natural. And then one thing, if you notice in my live shots, my mentors tell me about the art of the surprise. So Sammy kind of talked about this earlier as well. You kind of focus on me or Sammy, but then as we start to talk during the live shot, we start to pan to the damage of like the beach on that, the house on the beach, or the damage on the sidewalk as well. It kind of gives that element of, hey, you're looking at me, but take a look at this. I'm going to walk you through all these different elements right here. So it shows to the viewer that you're bringing a sense of value to them. You're also giving them a sense of surprise, like, oh, I didn't expect to see that massive tree as well. So having that kind of producer hat in terms of how can you storytell in a way that surprises people, but also keeps them, you know, on their toes as well. In terms of areas I want to improve on, I think always be more conversational. I think there are definitely ways I can be more conversational, be more, you know, dress more appropriately to the scene as well. I think in terms of like just writing, my mentors always tell me that writing and storytelling will always be the foundation of my career. So I think that area can always improve. And I think if you have that hat of wanting to learn, wanting to grow, wanting to improve all the time, you'll find there are plenty of ways to improve, even the smallest details too.
Very cool. Austin, I definitely want to turn to you next before we like kind of head down the road here for the next subject here. So I want to share with the audience your reporter reel here, or at least the first minute of it or so. Let me share it. And
Louis, I was
love
really disappointed. I kind of wanted to see you jump in that pool, man.
The producers kept like screaming in my ear, jump in the pool, jump in the pool. I'm like, no, I got to get home.
You speaking of which, do you remember, did any of you have Adam Shooms in your class?
No.
One of his, like, on his stand-up, he did like literally a stand-up in a full suit off the platform at Rose Bowl Aquatics. So, I mean, that's, you know, if you can top that, that's all I'm saying. Memorable. Anyway, here's Austin. Here's a little bit of your reel, and then I'd love to have you talk about, you know, your impressions of it.
Now the winds have really started to pick up. You can see the street lights behind me, they're shaking around. One thing you're gonna see if you're visiting Winona or a lot of these small communities that have been affected by this, you guys, is you're seeing people coming out and helping. They're showing their support. 28-year-old Brian Koberger was arrested in eastern Pennsylvania today.
And Austin, when are we expecting to hear from the defense team?
So the defense team did walk out of court today. Fox got a quick comment from them. They were brief with their words. They said that they're obviously disappointed in today's results. Some packages are too large to fit on conveyor belts, so instead they're put on vehicles and transported across the facility, just like this one. They're completely autonomous. Behind me, that's not a river, that's a street. Cars are driving over it every once in a while. About half of the people that drive up to it, they turn right around and they don't want to take the risk.
It's as easy as walking into the store, picking up something like your favorite coffee, then you walk through these glass doors, and now you've automatically been charged for this coffee on your smartphone. Now, you're ready to walk out.
Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has been asking for one of these Patriot systems for quite some time, and he got his wish last month. I got a 50-50 question for you. Who won that game, the American League or the National League?
American League.
Ian says yes.
The winner is the American League. All right, Randy, you got it.
All right. So I noticed something right away, Austin, and forgive me because I know we've had lots of conversations, but I remember when you were here, and then I think when you were actually working on your reel, and actually when you were working in your first market in Bakersfield, you would show me some of your work, and I know you were kind of struggling to kind of find kind of that proper voice of yours on camera or just in delivery. And in looking at this, I really feel like it's more a natural representation of you. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, it's all reps. All of it's reps. I could sit here and act like, oh yeah, I did this and it led me to this. No, I mean, just over time, you naturally find your cadence and you finally, I don't know if I'm ever going to fully feel like I'm in my rhythm with this, at least so far, 5 years in, still not there, but I'm more there than I was 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago. It gets better every year. In preparation for this call, I went back and watched one of my Canyons news pieces from 2017. So, you know, back then I had a squeaky voice. I didn't realize it until I watched it back, but my voice has changed like at least a few octaves, I feel like. And it's not because of anything that I've, you know, really changed in my voice consciously. It's just more that over 6 years and people giving you feedback, you watching yourself as well, and just kind of figuring out how you want to sound, you know, it kind of just comes over time, and ultimately you become a better version of yourself, or at least a version of yourself that you intend to be, if that makes sense.
No, it's great. I mean, you guys have all evolved as folks on camera. I mean, it's really cool to see. And, you know, it's humbling because I'm like, you know, I never felt like, in full disclosure, I mean, yes, I spent a lot of time on camera, but a lot of it was anchoring, right? And so I felt like I could kind of be authentic anchoring, but I never felt like I could be sort of authentic when I was in the field on camera. I never felt that like comfort level. So I feel like in watching you guys, it seems to me all three of you, and watching your short excerpts, that you guys are finding a way to sort of be more natural on camera. And I think that's important for, you know, I think for our students to kind of know, is that I think it's a very unnatural thing to be on camera, right? When you're trying to talk to an audience, correct?
It's supposed to feel bad at first. I would even argue that it's expected, you know, like, again, Sammy and I have worked on so many assignments together. There was one in particular where we got sent to Las Vegas for the first anniversary of the Vegas shooting. And I remembered we weren't even live or anything, but we were trying to shoot stand-ups outside of the concert venue where everything happened. And Sammy remembers this, no doubt. I could not get my words straight. And I filmed maybe 20, 30 stand-ups. And I just could not get it right. And it was because I was really green. I was just really new to this. It's completely normal. I got frustrated with myself. And that's going to happen to anybody that's in, MEA classes right now. Anybody that's taking Dave's class, it's not going to feel normal to do this at first. It's just not, and you shouldn't expect it to, because the only reason any of us three have any level of comfort on camera right now is because we made it through that long period of time where you just kind of got to work through the, it doesn't feel right, or this is stressful, or this feels uncomfortable, or, this or that. It's you don't get to a place where you feel comfortable unless you make it through those tough parts. So I can't say anything right now that's going to make you immediately go to your first stand-up and kill it. It's just not going to happen. What's going on? Go ahead. Sorry.
No. What you're saying is great. I wanted to bring Louie and Sammy into the conversation too. I mean, how'd you find your voice? I guess that's the easiest way of saying this. Like, how did you go from where you were, as a student, to now where you really do sound like you guys both, all three of you again, sound very, very professional. I'll start with Louie, and then Sammy, you can jump in.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything Austin said, hit the nail on the head. I think one thing early on when I was in COC, at COC, I really wanted more tangible advice, like how do you find your voice, right? And I think one thing that really helped me, a consultant really talked to me about this, and it really changed how I saw things. I think sometimes earlier I was really focused on memorizing my lines, that I just wanted to project it with energy. But then when the anchor would toss it to me, my cadence and my voice would not match the anchor toss at all. And because I was just so focused on memorizing my live shots. But she said, okay, if that anchor tossed it to you in the field live, and it's about a somber story, how would you react to that story? So I would focus, being very intentional about listening to the anchor toss. How would he talk? Really understanding my story as well. When I feel confident what the story's about, when I understand, when I put my feelings into it in a very professional way, but objective way, then it would help me match my cadence and my voice to that story. But I honestly think what Austin says is just repetition as well. Also being a sponge, not being afraid of getting feedback. And I think at the end of the day, it's just finding new ways to get better and better and better, and being intentional about looking at your stuff on a daily basis, weekly basis, and finding intentional ways to improve on that. I could have done better in this aspect of my live shot. How can I apply that right away tomorrow, and not just say, oh, I'm gonna try to work at it, and then months go by, and then you're not being very intentional about your growth.
Yeah, I think obviously confidence comes with reps, and reps I think probably are the most important thing. But as painful as it is, I would definitely try to watch yourself. Go back, watch your stand-ups, watch your newscasts. I hated doing that. And honestly, sometimes I just wouldn't, because I just would sit there and just go, oh, and sit there just hating it and hating myself. But it's so good to do that, because then you say, oh, hey, I noticed that I tend to tilt my head down, or my pitch gets very high at the end of my sentences, or whatever it is. And you start to kind of self-correct. And another thing that I would do is find on air people that you really like. I think that if you watch them and try to watch as many things of them as you can do, if you really like Jonathan Gonzalez's presence, watch him once a week. Or if you like a certain reporter and you like their voice, start listening to their packages. And honestly, that can go a long way with storytelling, with writing, with anything. If you just watch other people's work, your work kind of starts to look like theirs. And I don't think it's copying, but you just learn from them. I loved this woman's voice. Her name's Katie Eastman. She is a reporter in Denver. And I just thought she was so conversational. She had emotion in her voice. And I've always liked her for years. And without even thinking about it, I guess I kind of started picking up on some habits that she had. And the other week, I got 2 people from my newsroom saying oh, your voice reminds me of Katie's. And I just was that's the best thing that's the best compliment I could have ever gotten, was I'm starting to sound like someone that I really like. And obviously, you want to be yourself. Like, I'm never going to be, you know, as much as I love Boyd Hooper, I'm never going to be Boyd. As much as I love Katie, I'm never going to be Katie, but I can take what they're doing and like apply it and learn from it and figure out their styles and why does this work? Why does, when she says it this way, why does it make me feel a certain way? And you just kind of start to naturally pick up on people that you really like and watch a lot.
Very cool. Louis, who do you, if you know, you have someone in your head when you're like storytelling or your voice or whatever, who are you thinking about?
Oh man, I mean, I'm Boyd Hooper is like my favorite storyteller. I'm not even close to him, you know. But I take a lot of his different ideas, you know, about his storytelling and try to find my own style and twist to it. But I borrow a lot of ideas and I put my own style to it. But in terms of like people I follow, I love David Ono. He's like one of my favorites as well. One thing I used to do was really follow a lot of anchors, but to my detriment, I started to lose who I was. So I started to focus less on that for me personally and really understand what makes me me, you know, what makes me sound conversational, you know, what makes Louis' stories pop, right? When my mentors always tell me like, okay, when I look at your reel, how does your reel differ from another reporter? You're not trying to imitate someone else, but I want to understand who you are because that station is trying to hire you for you, what you think, how you see things differently, or how you cover things differently. So in this stage of my career, I've been really intentional about what makes me Louis Tran as a journalist, right? And bringing that to my stories.
Awesome. Austin, how about you? Who's your who's that little voice in your head that you're trying to kind of maybe imitate or not imitate, but you know?
One of your old coworkers, I believe, Bill Weir.
Bill Weir, very cool. Yeah.
So
who's in Maui right now as we speak, covering the
that's right.
Lahaina situation.
And so what's unique about Bill is he's found this way to not only come off very commanding and he's great on camera, but he's also cool. He's cool. You want to grab a beer with that guy after you see him. And to pull off both cool and being in command of your audience and your story and knowing your stuff, that's a hard thing to pull off. So I respect him a lot.
Yeah, no, Bill is cool. And you'd like Bill also if you ever met him because he's a musician like you, because you play the drums and he likes to play guitar. Do the whole garage band thing. So
okay. You have his number? Let's get a band started.
I could probably get it for you. Yeah.
Let's
no problem. Well, hey, let's talk about a couple other things here because I know you know, it's amazing. Like I feel like we could do like a 3-hour podcast with you guys. You guys are incredible the way you dole out advice. But let's talk about, since we're still kind of on the subject of being on camera. I know, Sammy, you kind of hinted at it earlier, but I think it'd be good just to kind of open it up to the general conversation here. But what general advice would you give to someone in the 225 class that's watching right now that knows nothing about how to dress, knows nothing about makeup? If, you know, what would you give me your kind of like advice on how you'd help them, I don't know, dress for success?
Yeah, well, first of all, I would tell them to message me on Instagram at Sammy Selena. I can help you. I can show you how I do my makeup, like for real. Like you need someone, if you have that person, like I had a mentor sit down with me and do my makeup. And I've done that for other gals. You know, I'm part Asian. And so I have different eye types than people. I like need a certain color foundation, you know, have someone help you through that if you're not sure what that looks like. And that was so helpful. I would say just like, you know, I've gotten most of my dresses at Goodwill. Like there is a way that you can get things and not have to afford like this insane wardrobe. And just like try to get like a couple different dresses or bright colored tops or something like that you can switch out for your stand-ups just while you start out. And, you know, I think I struggled with looking older. I think you can tell in my student reel, like I had some weird hair things going on. Like one stand-up, I would have like a cute little mom cut. The other ones, I just had like hair down to my waist. So I think that's something that I struggled with at first. It's like, oh my gosh, like I want to look older, but I'm 20 years old. So, you know, yeah. I would say don't worry about that too much. people will give you advice to like cut your hair and do all those things, but only do that if you're comfortable with it. I have long hair now and I still look pretty young, and I just kind of felt like, I don't know, this like looks a little bit more like me and I feel comfortable like that. So just, you know, I would say just if you can, just like look like you're about to go on TV. That's like the best advice I could give. So I wear a bunch of makeup every day, like just a close up. I have eyelashes on there, you can see eyeshadow, like lipstick, I have blush, I have all this stuff, and it helps a lot. It helps your face pop. Like if you think you like have enough makeup on, like put more on, because if the camera will just wash you out. And then with hair, like just kind of look like you did something to your hair. I curl my hair every day. You know, when I had that short hair, I made sure it was brushed. You know, if it's windy, I throw my hair back in a ponytail. And then I have, you know, now I have some dresses that are different colors and all this other stuff. So yeah, I would say just like, I guess the short answer is just look like maybe you're going to go on camera today. So I guess that's my advice when it comes to on air looks for women. And I always thought that stuff like wasn't important when I was a student. But you know, it's part of the job. So yeah, if you guys need help, let me know. You can message me.
Well, to quote Billy Crystal from his character from the 1980s, "You look marvelous." So it's all good. No problem. All right, Louis.
Yeah, I think one thing that has helped me realize, my mentors often tell me, this is pretty subjective, but it's something I believe in. They always tell me that the star of the show is not you. It's the information and stories that you share. So keep that the main focus as well. So whenever I dress, I try to make sure that I'm presentable. You know, I want to make sure I align with my brand and that it enhances my credibility. And I'll get to the word gravitas in a second. But what I've noticed is that viewers don't notice. They notice more if there's a mistake or something that's out of place than if you look good. What I mean by that is if you have, I don't know, like a shine here on your head, or your tie is crooked, they'll notice that more than if you wore a really nice suit, because viewers are always trying to focus on what looks off. TV kind of highlights those small things as well. So I try to make sure that I'm presentable in terms of my makeup and my suit, so that way it doesn't distract the viewers from the stories. But when I have a crooked tie, you'll be surprised, you know, how many people will email me like, "Hey, your tie's a little crooked. Just want to give you a heads up." I'm like, "Oh, wow, thanks for focusing on the story," right? But they'll notice those small things, right? So that's actually distracting away from the story. So I try to make sure that I look presentable. One thing my mentors also taught me is the word gravitas. In my prior career, when I worked in consulting, there would be partners who, when they walked into the room, they just naturally drew people's attention by the way they walked, their aura, the energy, their presence as well. It's not a cocky way, but they just drew people's attention. So they really stress this word gravitas when you're anchoring in the field. How do you create a presence where you're actually demanding people's attention in a very organic way, but also in a welcoming way as well? And your outfit really does have a lot to do with that. So I'm in the field. You'll notice in my reel, sometimes I'm wearing a tie and there's a tree. Sometimes there's breaking news, but I should do a better job bringing additional clothes with me, right? And changing. So that way I'm matching with the environment. That also adds to my credibility at the same time. But when I'm anchoring, I try to make sure that the focus is not focused on my tie, my suit. It doesn't take the attention away, but it supplements who I am. And it keeps the main focus on the stories.
It also adds to your confidence too. I just like feel like when you feel like you put effort into yourself in the morning, like you just feel more confident when you go on television. And that's part of it. And absolutely, yes, I am a storytelling fan. All of that stuff is so important. The information you give is so important. And like Louis said, a lot of it, even though it's so much work to do all that stuff, a lot of it is to just like not be distracting for what you're trying to do. And when you have everything in place, that's like, then, you know, all that stuff goes through. But yeah, you know, it's crazy what viewers, and that's part of the job. Like viewers will like just email this insane things about your presence too. And some of that you have to filter out. Like you'll get Facebook messages, and it's usually worse for women than it is for guys. But like, that's part of it, is like, you'll get these messages and some of it's just really terrible stuff. And you just gotta like, just people, like viewers can be crazy when it comes to that stuff. So that part of it is like, you have to
So
figure out-
glad that when I was on air for the 10 years I was on air, social media didn't exist, because I mean, they would have savaged me.
Yeah.
But yeah, good advice. Austin, how about you? You talk about your tips for what a student should be thinking about when it comes to fashion, what to wear, what not to wear, and what kind of speaks to you.
There's a couple of different like interesting tips I've picked up as I've been like challenged to go out and cover different types of stories. So obviously, if you're trying to look your best and maybe you're at a political event, maybe you're in court covering something that day, you're probably going to want to go with a tie and something that's very, you want to feel comfortable. But at the end of the day, if it's a story that's professional and you're in a professional environment like that, obviously it makes sense. There's also a lot of situations where you're out in a disaster zone, and it might just make sense to wear an easy button up that looks professional, yet, still is comfortable to a degree and allows your confidence to shine through. Like Sammy said, you ultimately need to feel comfortable in what you're wearing, and you have to like the way you look, because if you don't, then that's, you're not going to have like that command that we were talking about earlier. So, I mean, we're talking like down to, if you're covering a monster truck rally, or if you're covering something where it's just like, okay, then you can wear a t-shirt. Or there's so many different scenarios where you just kind of want to blend in, and maybe you don't want to worry about every little minutia of like, oh, is everything on my face trimmed exactly how it's supposed to be? Is every single hair in place? Sometimes it's more acceptable to kind of have that, oh, I've been out in the field all day kind of look. You've kind of been out there doing it all day, and that's okay. Another tip I could give about just looking the part, this doesn't even have to do with being on camera. This has to do with approaching people for interviews. If you're interviewing somebody like a doctor or a lawyer or somebody who's a high status person, we're talking, somebody that you want to dress up for, you should dress up for them, obviously. There's also been a lot of situations we're talking about looking young, and that's something that college students run into a lot. I've been asked, even as recently as the past year or two, like, oh, are you out here on a college assignment? Because people just assume that journalists tend to look way older than we all look. And so one trick, and this might sound silly, but like just literally putting on like something like this, I found nobody has ever questioned like, how old are you? Or like, what are you out here for school or something like that? Is everybody going to be able to put on a pair of glasses and just all of a sudden look like an adult? That's not going to work for everybody, but it could work for different facets of your job.
So if I take off my glasses, do I look like maybe 35 instead of 57? Just asking.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. Yes.
I'll say 34, but yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
And just to add on, like one thing, like, because we do want to like look good on camera, but a lot of us are MMJing in heat, in snow, whatever it is. I don't normally look like this when I'm MMJing. I still wear my fanny pack. I wear a fanny pack everywhere I go. It's so gross. It's like 2 years old and it's always exploding. And I have my hair up and I'm sweaty. But right before I go on camera, I take the fanny pack off. I throw some more makeup on, and like it's something that you have to do before you go on camera. But while you cover stories, you should be comfortable. You shouldn't be in heels if you're MMJing.
Something that's important for the guys too, I think I should say, is, no guy ever expects to wear makeup, but if you're going to be on camera, it's something that you really should consider. I have a makeup bag. I made sure to have it right next to me, and it's full of all kinds of things that I had never heard of 3 or 4 years ago, but now I kind of was forced to know what foundation is and then what powder is.
How did you learn to apply that? With YouTube?
I got lucky, and at my very first station, there was a male reporter there who was just like, hey, I know you're new to this. I would, if you want to go to the store, and I can actually like go into the green room and I can help you with this and just kind of figure this out. Because no guy goes into their first job or college or anything like that. Look, it feels weird at first too. If you're a guy putting makeup on for the first time, it does feel unnatural. It feels cakey. It can make you feel sweaty. But even right now, my face I have a naturally red face. And if I was to be in my normal TV production, on camera thing, people would notice that. They would notice imperfections, because people are used to people on TV not having imperfections on their face. So it's just one of those little things that if you take 60 seconds to make your face look right, it can make all the difference.
Louis, anything to add there?
Yeah, I mean, Austin said it well. Yeah.
Okay, so here's a question I have for you before we do like a quick round robin, because I know time is late and you guys are ahead of me. Well, you're not, Austin, but you and I are on the same time. But no, honestly, what colors should, if you're like, because I get to ask this question, and honestly, I literally should show you some of my old work. It's pretty funny because I mean, I didn't know what I was doing when it came to makeup. I didn't know what I was doing when it came to color coordinating. I was wearing literally my dad's suits. My dad is 6'7", I'm 6'4", so you can only imagine the shoulders are a little bit different. So I am the worst person to offer this advice. So my question to you all is, what colors in particular should you not wear on set, in the field? Is there any no-nos when it comes to like journalism fashion?
I'm gonna pull dresses real fast. So you guys talk and I'll show you the fun girl, awesome colored gemstone dresses. I'll be right back.
Okay, so Louis or Austin, feel free to take the floor on this one.
I mean, I would say
no-nos of the no-nos of fashion.
so. I think the real thing is just, I think the goal here, if you're gonna try and think about what you're wearing and stuff, the ultimate goal if you're on TV is you just don't want people to notice what you're wearing. I think that's at least my philosophy about it, is you just kind of, it shouldn't be something that people think about. As some of the folks on this call have already said, what you want people to be paying attention to is your story, and you want them to be looking at what you're saying and the expressions you have and maybe what's going on around you. You don't want them to be looking at this weird green tie you have on, or this distracting, jewelry piece. If some, women have jewelry on, that's a critique I've heard. But ultimately, I think the main critique I've ever gotten is, don't wear dark colors. And I still wear dark colors because that's what gives me confidence and that's what makes me feel good. And after a while, people stop telling me that. And so, there's a hint of just make sure you're crossing all your T's and dotting all your I's and making sure that you look good enough to where you're not distracting, but also a hint of you're comfortable in whatever it is that you have on.
Louis?
Yeah, I would just reemphasize like the focus of my mentor stressed to me, and I really believe in this. Austin really mentioned this. The focus, the star of the show is not you. It's the stories and the information that you share. And one thing that a lot of news directors I talk to in the industry when I'm networking, or, journalists of management level, they talk about, there's an emphasis on, are you a social media influencer or a journalist, right? And then it gets very subjective because I don't want to get to like what people should or should not wear, but they often talk about when they look at reels or look at stories or your presence on social media, do you put the emphasis on you or on the stories, right? And you can kind of get a sense of that, right? And your outfit is a factor into that. That's a fact. One thing I've also heard was a lot of management don't like when your tie is lighter than your shirt. For instance, if you're wearing like a dark black shirt, you don't want to wear like a white tie, right? Typically your tie should be darker than your shirt itself. A lot of consultants, this is subjective, but they say that they don't like black suits. So a lot of my suits are navy, different shades of blue, gray as well. And then I try to just make it very simple where the focus is on the stories, the information that I share. It adds to my credibility, but it doesn't take the focus away from the viewers as well.
Okay. Show and tell time with Sammy here.
Hi guys, I'm Sammy, and here is my closet. So I will say actually that I think fashion for women on camera, it has developed where, I feel like a lot of us just used to be in dresses, but like there's an anchor at Care 11, her name's Jana Shortall. She wears suits, she wears bold prints sometimes, and it's just like totally different than, what a lot of people would think is just like this stereotypical type of thing. But I think if you're looking for guidance, this is like potentially a good place to start, is that, a lot of people, for women, gem colored dresses, gem colored tops, bright solid prints, or no prints, bright solid pieces are pretty good. So I just grabbed a section out of my closet and it looks like this, where it's just like, bright greens and bright reds and bright blues, and mostly solid prints. You can have like bolder, like more bigger prints like this. And then things that are like a little bit tinier, like I don't think this is a good one anymore. And it's not super fitting. Fitted stuff is usually pretty good. Like deeper blues, like actually this is probably a more preferred blue than the blue I'm wearing. But I still have black dresses, I still have white dresses, I still have navy blue dresses, and that's okay to wear every once in a while too. But if you're looking for just like, I don't know what to wear, and I'm like gonna go to Goodwill and try to find something, like this is like gem colored things usually look good on everyone. So that's just like a really basic, like baseline place for people to start.
Can I say one last thing, Dave? I'm so sorry. It's just such an important point.
Yeah.
A lot of the people, mentors, and college courses and jobs and bosses, a lot of people have given me a lot of great advice. But one thing that I noticed is lacking is people don't think enough about just taking care of yourself and sleeping enough, drinking enough water, eating enough food throughout the day. All of these things go into making you look happier and healthier. And that's going to translate on camera. Nobody likes a reporter that looks tired and has bags under their eyes or just looks out of it or anything. You take care of yourself, you're going to look your best. And that's ultimately something that, paramount maybe to anything else I've talked about on this call.
That's awesome advice. And hey, listen, guys, I just want to say thank you to, what you guys have been talking about over the past like 60 minutes. I hope our students who are currently watching this take away, hopefully they've been taking notes, because I think you guys have offered like a masterclass. I really do, a masterclass in just, how to do your voice, being confident on camera, you going into your closet here just a bit ago and showing us your clothes. I mean, that's awesome. And I always appreciate the fact that, our former students, who are now professionals are able to share, kind of go out there and kind of share what they do professionally. So much appreciated. So thank you. And hopefully, I know that you said, Sammy, that students can reach out to you. I assume, can students reach out to you guys? Do you guys have a good handle if needed for students?
Absolutely. Just ask Dave. Give him my cell phone number. I can call, text anytime.
And same here as well. Call,
Great.
text, email, whatever is most convenient.
Very cool. Thank you, guys.